I know at first glance, at first blush, it's difficult to really understand and adjust ourselves to this model of healing that I'm presenting. It's not a new model. It's a new model in the sense of putting it into a modern context, a contemporary context rather, of an ancient system of healing that's been with us for, these 5,000 years. It's something that has been a blessing to me to come upon it through my experience of investigating the spiritual domain of Western life and how it applies itself to our becoming whole and healthy. Myself being a healer, a clinician, having trained as a physician, my interest is naturally in guiding and giving processes of self-healing to people to make them free for themselves through the occurrence of their difficulties and disturbances, through their own pain. As I mentioned, the student who stopped responding in a reflexive way to her husband creating this mess in the home, in the living, when he piled all of his clothes up in the middle of the living room floor after coming in from work each day. And when she stopped doing that, what did she do? She understood that she was not a slave, that she wanted to be free. So in essence, we're talking about, in this circumstance of healing, how do you become free? What makes us, and when we become free, this is invoking change for ourselves automatically. It automatically brings to bear those healthy and valuable components of ourselves, our own, as we call it, our own power to heal, and our own power of becoming and noting and making access to how free we can be. The thrust of the healing work and the basis for these therapeutics that I'm introducing, no matter what the technique is or the method that I'm sharing with you, all focuses in on becoming free. and doing so, we're reversing the usual habit of our everyday behavior and our way of looking at the world. We're reversing all of what we currently hold to be a meaningful and useful way to approach our difficulties. Usually, that works itself out, that part of it, by becoming dependent on some outside agency, some outside source, who will then, or which will then, provide us with the needed relief to our circumstance and our condition. Yes, they may be helpful for the moment, but it doesn't then allow us to search into ourselves to understand what we might do to contribute to our own healing. My idea is to make you, and to give you the opportunity to become an agent of your own healing, to become your own healer. And this is a capacity that we're born with. So in becoming free, we are then gaining for ourselves the knowledge that we have inherently been given in our life to establish this source of freedom for ourselves. And so we want to always focus on establishing a sense of freedom that exists, and we do this by turning ourselves to, and giving ourselves and putting our attention to this inward process, for example, of the imagery work to find the source of healing that is inherent in ourselves, that has been given to us as a sacred language from this invisible reality that we call the universal life source, or the invisible reality, or consciousness, or divinity, or the absolute one mind, or any one of a dozen ways of explaining this invisible capacity, this invisible source that can sustain us and help us through our lives. So the invisible the language, the sacred language that comes to us comes to us not in words, but in a three-dimensional representation called image. So to become free, So become free is to step away from the situation that is in front of your face, and not to turn away from it in terms of putting your head in the sand and trying to avoid it, but looking at the situation directly and finding what it prompts in ourselves as a way to create for ourselves the necessary imagery process, which is a function of this attitude of freedom and direction of freedom, to give us a shift or a change or a reversing in our life situation, so that we can always find an antidote within ourselves to the difficulties that exist in front of us. And I'd like to share with you an example of this.